Wonderful. I'd like to tell you who's going to be here and then give everyone an opportunity to give an introduction. I'm going to name everyone and then we'll go through. For City Commissioner position 2, we have City Commissioner Dan Ryan and we have AJ McCreary. For City Commissioner position 3, we have City Commissioner Joanne Hardesty, Rene Gonzalez, and Vadim Mozyrsky. And for Multnomah County Chair, we have Commissioner Sharon Meieron, we have Commissioner Jessica Vega Peterson, and we have Commissioner Lori Stegmann. Please, thank you for muting yourself. Okay, so hello, Commissioner Hardesty. Nice to see you.
Good morning.
Okay, so now I'd like to start with everyone's candidate statement, and we're going to start with City Commissioner position 2, and we'll start with City Commissioner Dan Ryan. And please know, I'm going to review this one more time. Bridget will flash a bright timesheet when you have just 10 seconds left, so you can wrap up your response. Then an alarm will go off indicating that your time has wrapped up, okay? So please be respectful again of that time. Okay.
3 minutes.
That's correct.
Okay, well, good morning, everyone. I am Commissioner Dan Ryan, and just over 2 years ago, after the sad passing of Commissioner Nick Fish, I was called by many friends and colleagues who've worked with me to serve my city. And I decided to say yes. I jumped in, and in spite of getting 0 political endorsements in the primary, I somehow got into the runoff. And then a few months later, I found myself being sworn in on September 10th, 2020. And it's definitely been a trial by fire since. And I'm right back at you trying to extend my service and have a full term. Since that appointment to serve my hometown, I was asked by the mayor to take on some really big, important assignments. One is the houseless issue, which is a dotted line to my friends at the county who run all the services they provide the services for people on the ground and people needing housing, and instantly jumped in to basically be a diplomatic disruptor. I simply was asking questions. Where's the data? Why don't we have real-time data? So I reached out to my friend at Community Solutions and Built for Zero, and we finally got a contract signed, and we're still trying to make some progress so that people really know a dashboard of how we're doing, how many people are actually really homeless on the ground. We can't wait for the much criticized point in time count every 2 years to give us very questionable data. We really need to know the names and do assessments of people who are on the ground. So I pushed for that and finally got it. Now the culture has to receive those services. I've also really pushed back on the fact that, of course, housing is important. Housing has to be one of the main components of the challenge. But I just question, how about services first? When we have people on the ground that are chronically homeless, suffering from dual, triple diagnoses, we have to bring the services to them on the ground and build on-ramps of support so we can actually start to see more success when people are actually housed. So it's an and equation, and that's what I leaned into with that. A few months later, the mayor gave me the Housing Bureau to oversee, and I've really done a job of looking at the whole continuum, not only the on-ramps from people suffering on the streets to stability for housing, but also what about on-ramps to long-term first-generational wealth creation, which would be home ownership. So those are the 2 areas of the continuum that we're missing the most, and so I've just merely focused on that. I've proven to be a collaborator with the county, and I can't believe 3 minutes is almost up. I'm so delighted to be here. This hometown person is ready to have a full term of service. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Ryan. Really appreciate you sharing that in a concise manner, and also running for City Commissioner position 2 is AJ McCreary. AJ, welcome. Love to hear from you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. My name is AJ McCreary.
My name is Alana Joy McCreary. I go by AJ, and I'm running for Portland City Council seat number 2. I'm a single parent, a light-skinned woman, a community organizer, artist, renter, non-driver, and a problem solver. I was born and raised in Portland. I went to Benson High School. I remember Portland where my mom could time me to the minute if I was taking a bus because the transit here was that reliable. This is my home. This is a city that shaped me. I am rooted in this community so much that it's helped me to raise and educate my son Hobbs, who is homeschooled, a local artist, ballet dancer, and he's kind of a superstar. I know my kid wouldn't be the human he is without this community. I know I wouldn't be the person I am today without this community. I had my kid when I was in college, and I'm the only parent he has. I've relied on social service programs, community-based organizations, and the kindness of those in my community to get by. That is why you can always find me in community, because it is in this community where I feel most at home, rooted and connected. But right now, I do not recognize the city that we've become. There is an incredible amount of unmet need. And ever since I've been lifted out of a position of need, I've strived to be the kind of person I hope to meet on my darkest day, which is why I've been filling in the gaps, pouring resources and support into the community for folks living on the margins. As executive director at Equitable Giving Circle, a Black-led nonprofit, I have led the charge to raise and invest over $4 million over the past 2 years to support our most vulnerable Portland families. We have supported over 25,000 Black, Brown, Indigenous, and immigrant households across Portland through our weekly CSA program and food pantry program. By prioritizing and sourcing of fresh produce from local small businesses. I'm also one of the founding members of Mom Block, a large network of moms showing up to take care of one another. We have fed over 800 families when PPS cut nutrition services during last year's wildfires and provided AC units and hotel vouchers to over 100 families during the deadly heat wave last summer. People know me as a doer, a solution-based, data-driven bridge builder, and you can see that through my work on the ground, my support in raising capital for enrichment programs, housing, and direct care. Portland is in crisis right now. Our housing issues are growing. Public safety is not a concept we experience, and climate change is no longer a future threat. Unfortunately, our current leadership is not prioritizing or addressing root causes of many issues that Portlanders are up against, including climate change, housing, food access, transportation, childcare, and healthcare. Portlanders deserve better, and we need leadership that is rooted and invested in community. I am the new energy that we need in City Hall. I am committed to community care and building a better Portland for all Portlanders. I know we are only temporary stewards, so our job should always be creating a better, more equitable Portland for right now and for our future generations. It is what my son and our children deserve. It is what we all deserve. My name is AJ McCreary, and I'm your next City Council Commissioner for seat number 2.
Thank you, AJ. And we're going to now move to candidates for City Commissioner position 3. And we'd like to hear first from Commissioner Hardesty.
Thank you and good morning. I'm very grateful to be here to speak with you today. In my 3 years on Portland City Council, I will say it has been my biggest honor to serve the people of the city of Portland. In my time at City Council, we've gone through a lot of crises, but we've also had tremendous success. Creating the first of its kind, Portland Street Response, a brand new responder when people call 911 seeking help. And I'm excited today we'll be officially launching Portland Street Response citywide. I came into City Hall because I believed that we could do better to represent working people in the city of Portland. After 2 years of pandemic, wildfires, heat, cold, all the other things that we experience as a community, I can tell you the biggest reason why we have such a large houseless population is because it costs too darn much to live in the city of Portland. When a median family income for a family of 4 is $96,900, and when I keep hearing we got to open up hotels, we got to open up restaurants, I don't know where they expect to get workers who can no longer afford to live, work, and worship in the city of Portland. And I have worked hard with my colleagues, with community, to build real change in City Hall. I don't think you've ever met an elected leader in one term changed a 911 response system. My change is the first one in 100 years, and we did it in the first term. And I look forward to continue to serve you in the future as we continue to change these systems that have never worked for working people, and certainly not working people of color in the city of Portland. I look forward to answering your questions later. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Hardesty. And next, we would love to hear from Rene Gonzalez.
Well, thank you so much for having me today. And I just want to honor, to start off, what your organization has done for so many retailers during this very difficult last 2 years. I just, Brickett Need Mortar's leadership and advocating for our local businesses is truly inspiring, and want to thank you for your efforts. I truly feel like I'm speaking to the tribe. I'm a 20-year member of the private sector in Portland. I am now in my 10th year owning my own small business, a law firm focused on Northwest companies, as well as a small technology company supporting businesses throughout the Midwest and Northwest. I know what it means to cut my own salary to make payroll, to make sure I pay my vendors on time, what it means to negotiate with landlords in the era of a pandemic. So I know what your group goes through, and I fight those fights every day. For further background, my family has ties to the city for over 100 years. I've been engaged civically in my entire professional career here in Portland, Portland Children's Museum, Library Foundation, president of the largest youth soccer club in Portland. And in the last 2 years, successfully led the statewide efforts to reopen schools in the city of Portland and statewide to allow working families to get back to work, most particularly mothers who were most directly impacted by closed schools, as well as to restore access for our children in our city and state. A bipartisan effort, data-driven. I'd like to apply those same skills to the challenges facing the city. In particular, what's driving me now is our declining livability and declining environment for our organizations, whether profit, nonprofit, cultural institutions. We are truly at an inflection point in the history of our city, and I'm ready to roll up my sleeves and fight for a better Portland for tomorrow. Thanks so much. I'm going to keep it short and sweet.
Thank you so much. And also running for City Commissioner position 3 is Vadim Mozyrsky. Vadim, we'd love to hear from you.
Thank you very much for having me here. I appreciate speaking with you and hearing from you as well. My name is Vadim Mozyrsky. I'm running for Portland City Council to revitalize Portland through bold vision, accountability, inclusiveness, and I think very importantly at this day and age, pragmatic rather than dogmatic solutions to the problems we're facing. I'm an immigrant from the Ukraine when it was still in the former Soviet Union. My family moved here for the American dream. I'm a product of public schools, public university, and public law school. When I became a lawyer and an administrative law judge for the federal government, it was a culmination of that American dream for my family. But too many people in Portland are seeing that American dream fail for them right now. Homelessness and the humanitarian crisis that we have in our streets is certainly out of control in Portland and has been on that trajectory for several years now. We have the most deaths in the street in the history of Portland, the most overdoses in our homeless community in the history of Portland, and the most vehicle pedestrian deaths. Crime is on the rise. You all know that. Certainly you feel that every day. We have the highest homicide rate in the history of Portland, but crimes overall, including burglaries and even kidnapping, is on the rise. And lastly, our form of government is not working for us. We need to change it so that it's more responsive to the community and it's more responsive to the people in Portland, as well as to the businesses that are trying to hire and help Portland grow. Portlanders expect basic services. They want the trash to be picked up. They want a crime to be low, then their neighborhoods to be safe. They want help for those in need. And then in case there's misfortune, they want a quick 911 response time. In exchange, people obey the laws, they pay their taxes, they do their civic duties, and they vote. Portlanders are doing their part. Our government is unfortunately not. And so in this, I think policies matter. You can have great vision for Portland, but unless you have policies that actually work, we can't get there. And we're seeing a failure of policies right now. I've developed policies for the US government. I've worked in various committees and commissions for Portland and have a proven track record of developing pragmatic, effective policies for our city. Experience matters. I've managed large offices for the federal government with expenditures in the hundreds of millions of dollars, but I'm also a national union representative supporting the labor movement. I've worked on, once again, various committees, commissions for the city. And I've also been the president and board member of Public Safety Action Coalition, which works with businesses and neighborhood associations to get things done. Lastly, your vote matters. So I hope you vote, and I hope you vote wisely, and I look forward to representing you in City Council.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And we are now going to move to our candidates for Multnomah County Chair. And we'd like to begin, I believe, Sharon. Hello, Sharon. Good to have you. Commissioner, and Commissioner Meieron, good to have you.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for this opportunity to be here today. I really appreciate your engagement and activism and just bringing all of us together. And I'm Sharon Meieron. I am the County Commissioner representing District 1, and that is all of the county west of the Willamette River. It is inner southeast out to Cesar Chavez. And it includes many of the areas that have faced just the biggest challenges in terms of what's been happening with the pandemic and the crisis. It includes the Central East Side. It includes downtown, Old Town Chinatown, and the Pearl, and so much more. And so in addition to that, I am also a practicing emergency room doctor. I'm a volunteer with Portland Street Medicine, going outside, delivering direct care to people living unsheltered. And I'm also a lawyer, and I practiced in general business litigation for over 7 years before going back to med school. So most people, first of all, don't know the county exists, let alone what it does as a different form of government from the city. And, you know, we have such a bizarre and dysfunctional form of local government. This has been alluded to already, and we need to change that. But right now, you know, small businesses are impacted daily with how they interface with the city's bureaus or with the county's departments. And in terms of how I think about the city vis-a-vis the county, city is a lot of the bricks and mortar, the zoning, business development, infrastructure, a lot of transportation, and some emergency management services with the county. The county is, no offense to my city colleagues here today, but we are the heart and soul of local government. We do public health, community health, mental health, social services, and a little bit of infrastructure. So right now we're a county in crisis, and all of us see this, some form of inhumanity every day. And whether it's human beings living outside in garbage on our streets, whether it's people experiencing mental health crises and they're taken to jail instead of to treatment, it's methamphetamine use that causes permanent psychosis and acts of horrific violence. It is so much. And I know we all wonder how we got to this point, but more importantly, I think what we are focusing on and why I'm running for chair is what are we going to do about it? And the position of chair is extremely important. Unlike the city, the chair is a true executive. And as a sitting commissioner, I've learned that the chair controls them. Is that, sorry, okay. Anyway, sorry, I was like looking on my, I heard the beeper though.
All right.
And
Thank you.
I have just the one, I have a unique background and perspective of triaging crisis, handling multiple crises in the core areas of the county. And that's what I will bring to bear as chair.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Meieron. Really appreciate that. And next we'd like to hear from Commissioner Jessica Vega Peterson.
Thank you, Sarah. Good morning, everyone. I'm Jessica Vega Peterson. It's such a pleasure to be here today and to have a chance to have a conversation with you and to get to tell you a little bit about who I am and what my vision is for Multnomah County. So when I got married and was ready to start a family 16 years ago, my husband and I, we bought our home in East Portland. It was where we could afford in Portland, but it was also a place where we knew we could be a part of the community, and it really just felt like home with us. It was a very vibrant, diverse part of the community. And so we've been there ever since, the same house, the same block, and the same rapidly changing community. And I'll have to say, like, it's no surprise that this community calls to me. It's an area of the city that is made up of people from all over the world who are working hard to better their community. But a lot of times they're also working hard just to keep their heads above water. And I understand this community because I am this community. I am proud to be an East Portlander. I'm a Latina, I'm an American, I'm a lifelong community volunteer. I spent 14 years in the business sector and the past 10 years as a public servant. And I'm very proud to have been Oregon's first Latina elected to the Oregon House and the third Latina County Commissioner. We're all here today because each of us cares about this city, this county, and its people. And we know that Multnomah County needs strong leadership today. It is at a critical inflection point. I heard somebody else say that earlier today. We need a leader who feels the challenges our county faces and who sees that path forward and who's going to be able to weave together a coalition to meet the moment and to create the changes that we desperately need. And that's exactly why I'm running for county chair, because it's what I've done right here in this community for the past 16 years. And I have to say, I have never done it alone. My leadership always starts with a broad table that includes those people in the communities that are most impacted by the issues at hand. And it always starts with not demonizing the other side, but with the realization that there is no other side. It is only real people who are trying to fix the problems in their own backyard. I ran my first campaign on sidewalks, on the dangerous speeds that people drive through my East Portland neighborhood. It turned out that the seemingly small issue of sidewalks was part of a much bigger one. It was a smaller piece of a bigger movement in a corner of Multnomah County that had been forgotten. The community came together to support my first campaign, and together we were able to make a lot of waves. We not just only got sidewalks, we got so much more. And I've brought that power building approach to every issue I've tackled, both at the state legislature and at the county commission. In Salem, I championed the initiative to bring paid sick leave to every Oregon worker. And here in Multnomah County, I am probably most proud of my work as the coalition that delivered Preschool for All to us. And in the next 4 years, Multnomah County is going to need to meet its challenges with this exact kind of proven collaborative leadership. And I am proud to be running for Multnomah County Chair. I'm so glad to be here with you today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner. And next, we'd like to hear from Commissioner Lori Stegmann.
Thank you, Sarah. Great to be here. I'm Lori Stegmann, Multnomah County Commissioner, representing most of East Multnomah County. So a little bit about me is that I am an immigrant. I'm someone who grew up with housing and food insecurity in East County. Some of you may be familiar with the Rockwood neighborhood, where over 80 languages are spoken. I was able to not only survive, but to thrive because I had access to public assistance. So food stamps, our family had food stamps when they were actually stamps. Unfortunately, I know what powdered milk tastes like, and we had government cheese. But the thing about my upbringing is that all along the way, there was public assistance. My dad was on disability and there were 7 people in our family, and we really struggled. But again, there were always services. I was able to have access to student loans so I could put myself through college. And as a mother, a small business owner, and the first Asian American, Korean American in 168 years ever to be elected to the board of Multnomah County Commissioner, I really have found what I think is so important is that we have a responsibility to one another. And I specifically, because I was adopted through Holt International, you may have heard of the Holt Airlift, where over 3,000 starving Korean orphans were airlifted out of South Korea and adopted into American families. So I've always felt incredibly blessed, incredibly privileged, and it's my deepest responsibility to make sure that other people have those opportunities as well. But I've had the privilege of also owning my own business in the same neighborhood that I grew up. So, you know, this is a business community. So I hear you. I've been in the Rockwood neighborhood with my insurance agency for nearly 30 years. I understand what it is to run a business. And I know that if I don't make a sale, I don't bring home a paycheck. So if you cannot figure out how to earn a return on your investment, you don't stay in business very long. And I understand what it's like to sign the front of a paycheck, as some folks may or may not understand the challenges of what it's like to run your own small business. I have a sign in my office that is a picture of a woman. She's rock climbing and she's hanging on this cliff. And it says, yeah, but does she have the guts to start her own business? And that's always how I felt about small business owners, is that it takes so much to continue in a business. And I have the experience. When I was a Gresham City Councilor, we instituted programs like the Garage to Storefront program, and I also want to start an economic development department at the county. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Stegmann. Thank you, everyone, for your introductions. We're going to jump right in. Want to make note, Commissioner Hardesty does need to leave early because she is making a participating in making a statement about the new street response. And so let's jump in. For the first question, we have invited one of our members. But I want, before I do say that, this next question is for all candidates. And I'm going to preface it by saying Portland has long been known for its small businesses, which are the economic engine of our city and our state. Many of these small businesses have been the most greatly impacted by the past few years. And many of these businesses didn't get any PPP, didn't get EIDL, didn't get any grants. Many dutifully paid their rent, but were not able to conduct business and required, yes, and many of those were in sectors that weren't eligible for restaurant relief grants or venue grants. For example, people who work in the personal services. Many have closed their doors for good, and there are many who continue to forge ahead, finding themselves at the front lines of our houseless crisis, helping to direct people to resources while working to protect their customers, their employees, and themselves from very real personal threats and crimes that have now become routine. So we've invited Catherine Seeley. She's the owner of Events Cosmetics in downtown Portland to ask the first question of all the candidates. Catherine, are you here?
Catherine, are you here?
Hi, yes, can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you, Catherine.
Yes,
I don't see you.
Catherine. I don't see you.
Hold on one second. Let's see if I can correct that.
We can hear and see you, Catherine. Go ahead.
We can hear and see you, Catherine.
Okay, all right. I can't see you on the screen anymore, but hopefully you can see me. Okay, well, first of all, good morning, everyone, and thank you to all of the candidates and members already in office for joining us this morning and taking time to answer questions. I'm actually excited to see many of you face even though it's Zoom. One of the concerns I've had is that throughout this ordeal downtown, I haven't had an opportunity to see any of you. So I do have some specific questions for you that I wrote down. And one is, what is your vision for Portland? Everything, we know that you're aware of all of the issues, the homelessness, the safety and health issues, but we'd like to know what your vision is for Portland going forward, and how does small business fit into that vision, because we seem to be left behind in a lot
decision-making and allocation for funds to help revitalize the city? And then last but not least, what do you propose to do to support that vision?
Thank you so much, Catherine. Really appreciate you posing that question. So let's go down our list and let's answer Catherine's question. But Bridget will be taking time. Please be honoring the time, and we can start. Let's start in a different direction this time. Let's start with Commissioner Lori Stegmann.
And it's only 2-minute answers, guys. It goes really quick.
Okay, well, thank you so much. So when I was a little girl, I live in Gresham. We used to go to downtown Portland. And I don't know if y'all remember when Meieron Frank was like 6, 7 stories. And I remember going into downtown Portland and we would have like teas, or we would see Santa Claus. And I remember on the second floor of Meieron Frank, there was Train, and then the store was so beautiful. And we would get dressed up and we would spend the whole day having a tea and lunch and shopping. And I just remember how magical and special downtown was. And that is my vision, is to bring back that kind of magic and that kind of commerce downtown. But I know that businesses have suffered. And so by creating things, I want to create something called a forensic assertive community team, similar to the Portland street response, that will respond to emergencies, acute chronic ones. Also, I want to support and fund something called the Behavioral Health Emergency Coordination Network. This would create a 24/7 drop-off site for first responders that could stabilize, triage, screen, provide sobering pathways, and connect people to the services that they need. And as we all know, fentanyl, meth, all of those things have created such a mental health and a substance use crisis on our street that we are seeing more and more individuals suffering from crises. And so not only do we have to free up our first responders from having to do the jobs that they were never trained for, signed up for, but I believe and I know that if we can help divert people out of the criminal justice system into behavioral health, we can help small businesses.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Commissioner Vega Peterson.
Thank you. All right. So it does go by fast. You know, I think that when we look at all of the issues that we're facing today, we know that we need to have strong leadership. We need a leader who understands that the crises that we're facing in these unprecedented times, whether it's housing and the houselessness crisis, whether it's reckoning with centuries of racial and social injustice, or witnessing the devastating impacts of climate change, you know, these are huge issues that we have to act boldly on. And I still believe that all of us, no matter what our zip code, has a right to thrive, and that the county chair should be able to get us there. And that's what we need the leadership for. Small businesses, I know, are the backbone of our local economy. They're the engine of economic mobility, and they always have been. In my career, I've worked at businesses ranging from small tech startups to Fortune 500 companies. And my husband is actually a small business owner. In fact, since college, he's never worked for anyone except himself. So I know firsthand how rough these past 2 years have been for small businesses. Government has the power to be a help for businesses, like through the PPP program, through some of the grants program that the state and the county has enacted, but it also has the power to do things like shut businesses down during the pandemic, and that is a huge impact. As county chair, I will work closely with small businesses to make sure that the policies and the work that we're doing as we address the issues of housing and houselessness, of racial injustice, of climate change, we're taking your perspectives into account. And I'll be doing this by having an advisory committee of small businesses on these issues. The county can do more and should be doing more to support small businesses and to help more people start their own businesses. And so that's why it's so critical that we do take the time to listen and learn from groups like this one. And that's something that's always been the cornerstone of my leadership style. And and we're at time. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And next, Commissioner Meieron.
Thank you. So I grew up in a family of business people and entrepreneurs. My grandfather was a Jew who escaped Nazi Germany to come to the United States and started an insurance agency, which he built up and thrived. And he was a pillar in his community, starting with nothing. His son, my dad, was a scientist and went from working at a small semiconductor firm to join a small startup, Intel Corporation. And I was around for the development of Silicon Valley. That's, and watched that grow and expand. My brother owns a popular bar and a restaurant in downtown Los Angeles, and I talk to him almost daily about all of these issues. And though I'm a doctor now, I did major in economics and I practiced law, doing business litigation for 7 years. And I led the technology group of my old firm doing trademark and copyright law and some other stuff. So I have extensive plans on my website for all of my policies in terms of homelessness, behavioral health, and just to speak to, I totally believe in the Behavioral Health Emergency Coordination Network Commissioner Stegmann mentioned, and I was one of the founders of that plan and have been extensively involved for the past 2 years as we've been developing it with community, and it can be a game changer. But all of this is on my website. I encourage you to go there because I think what's so important is that vision. And thinking of people like Jesse Burke, the Central East Side Together group, all the people I have engaged with, shown up for, brought together, and listened to hear what the impacts are and what we can and should be doing.
Thank you. Thank you. We're going to move on. And I just want to remind everyone, this is a tight time frame. So please stick to the time and thinking about the core of the questions. Catherine asked, what is your vision? What is your vision for the city and how will you support that? So if that's helpful, I just wanted to repeat that. And could we go to Vadim Mozyrsky next, please?
Thank you. So Portland is an area with unique stores, restaurants, and venues. It's what makes our neighborhood so vibrant, and it's what draws people to our city. I'm running for office because we need to ensure that we grow as a city based on those fundamentals, and that the people in City Hall actually listen to the needs of the community rather than just talking about those needs. Running for office, you hear a lot of stories. You talk to a lot of people, and most of the stories are good stories. People are rolling up their sleeves and helping out as much as they can, but they're waiting for a plan. But you also hear the stories about people leaving the city. You hear small businesses like one on the east side that grew here in Portland. It was a green business putting plants on buildings that is actually moving out of Portland because of safety issues. And we need to listen to those businesses, what their needs are, and address those needs. We certainly had, in my Public Safety Action Coalition, a business that came to us and said, we need to close down the streets in the evenings in Old Town because of the crime. They went to PBOT. PBOT didn't give them a response, even though they did that before. They refused to close down the streets. And they asked me, why is our city not listening? So we need to listen. We need to nurture that spirit of activism, entrepreneurship, and artistic imagination that makes Portland great. Fundamentals first, clean up the graffiti, proven and tested policies for public safety here in Portland, things that have worked in the past and will work in the future again, and other cities are working with. Address the homeless humanitarian crisis by finding warm beds and shelters for everybody and connecting the services. And then also increasing foot traffic in our business areas by creating venues such as music and things that draw people back to our central areas, but also free parking days. I can go on and on, but that's my time. Thank you.
Thank you. We'd like to hear from Rene Gonzalez next, please.
Thanks so much for the question, Catherine. I ran in response to a crisis on our streets, really declining livability, business environment, and environment for organizations, the nonprofit and in the arts. But the issue I hear the most on the campaign trail is a city devoid of vision. This city that I've lived in my entire adult life long knew who it was. It was a city with a beautiful urban core, wonderful parks, protected waterways for bikers, for strong neighborhoods. And that seems to have been lost in recent years, particularly during the pandemic. So what that vision for the city going forward is, I think we're going to need to create a space post-pandemic to redefine it. There are tremendous opportunities. The way people do work has changed tremendously, accelerated really. A decade's worth of evolution has occurred in 2 small years in terms of how people work. That is both a mammoth risk for the city of Portland in terms of workers being able to work from anywhere. It's also a tremendous opportunity. If we can solve livability, if we can restore some of our strengths there, we can attract talent and workers from all over the world. And so I think the vision for Portland post-pandemic has to be a combination of leaning into what we were in the past, also recognizing the new realities, the new opportunities, the new risk. Fundamentally, with respect to small business, I am an entrepreneur. I love the creativity, the self-actualization to build, to create, to test, to engage with customers and vendors and employee partners. And so it's a centerpiece of our history, and it's going to be a centerpiece of the go forward for the city of Portland. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next we'd like to go to AJ McCreary.
Let me unmute. Yeah, thank you. My vision for Portland is one where everyone has the means to pursue their dreams, and that includes being able to start and sustain a business doing what we love doing. My dad was a small business owner most of my life. Prior to starting Equitable Giving Circle, I was a small business consultant, and now I work every day as the ED of Equitable Giving Circle, a direct-to-family food service program that enriches low-income Portlanders who receive farm fresh produce weekly and provide a guaranteed business for our local small farms surrounding the city. My work is an example of the collaboration between small business and the communities they serve. Portland small business depend on communities for their workforce, and we then rely on them to enliven our streetscapes, providing living wage jobs, and making our communities thriving places for people of all ages to call home. In 2020, small businesses took a major hit, and many of our small businesses closed their doors for good, and many more are still hanging on by a thread. Our city needs to utilize the resources at our disposal to provide stabilizing grants and loan programs that will also help with business mobilization and modernization. As the market shifts, we need to reimagine a downtown that is not as dependent on office workers as it once was, but instead a downtown enlivened with art festivals, street fairs, youth engagement programs, and the rehabilitation of empty office buildings into housing, and even more innovation that comes when we dream big and bring our communities together to make the city the best it can be. We need to nip this Portland is dying rhetoric in the bud. It's not good for business, and the truth is Portland isn't dying, but too many people are struggling. We had enormous growing opportunity and income inequality crisis, and housing costs have been soaring for years and years, driving more and more people to have no other choice but to couch surf, sleep in their cars, and pitch tents. We need to focus on the real solutions of houselessness, providing quality housing and supportive services to everyone who needs it, supporting Portland Street Response as it gains experience serving as citywide. Real progress on housing and safety for all will improve life for everyone in Portland by meeting the needs of folks who are experiencing this humanitarian crisis. Our small business
Thank you.
part of that journey.
And
next, let's go to Commissioner Ryan. What's your vision, Commissioner Ryan?
Yeah, first of all, I'm the youngest of 8. My dad was a small business owner in St. John's for 30 years. When I first got into this race over 2 years ago, it was the concerns about safety in the streets, translate that into how we need to move to joy in our streets. So my vision is to have less people in hardship on our streets because they're receiving humane services. And so they're building their resilience, and they will eventually become our best employees in the homeless community, serving those people in need. Community safety needs to be rooted in community. It's why I led the effort with Commissioner Rubio to get investments out into the community. Those who are impacted by gun violence the highest are the ones that need those resources. And we look at studies across the country where there's trust between the police and those impacted by violence. You see the least amount of increases in violence. In fact, you see some really good results. And we need to have the best permitting system in the country, not the worst, which is why I'm leading the effort with Commissioner Mapps on reforming that. The good news is we have $500K in the spring bump for repair grants, which are much needed for small businesses. We're looking at a $10 million investment through the ARPA stabilization grants for small businesses, which would be $25K per small business. I'm well aware, because I talk to people all the time, that insurance costs are going up, security costs are going up. It's really hard for small businesses to meet their bottom lines when the city, who's supposed to provide these basic services, has been failing you. Again, we've been tolerating some intolerable conditions in the city of Portland. I've been looking at this since 2015. It was my motivation to jump in. It's why I won a full term, so I could serve all of you and do what's right for our small businesses. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Ryan. And now, Commissioner Hardesty, I just want you to know that I did not intentionally, I didn't skip over you without the thought that I know you only have a short amount of time. So I'm going to ask you that question about vision, and then I'm going to ask you to answer the next question as well. So
I'm happy to do that. No, I wasn't going anywhere until I got a chance to respond. Let me say, in answer to Catherine's question, when COVID first hit, I worked with Mayor Wheeler to make sure that we prioritize small business owners with every federal relief dollar that came in early. And I am proud to say that most of those dollars initially went directly to small business owners, and a majority to small business owners that were women of color. We prioritized Asian Pacific Islander businesses because they were being brutalized by racism at the very beginning of this pandemic. And we made it a point to make sure that we were supporting those businesses. In addition to that, my work with PBOT created the Healthy Business Initiative that allowed many small businesses to survive, and I would say some thrive during COVID by creating outdoor spaces that we didn't charge additional dollars for, and creating some outdoor meeting spaces all around the city that are community spaces. My plan is to continue to expand those community spaces, because we know community members feel safer when there are pedestrians walking in the neighborhood and people know each other. I will also say that that vehicle homicide, death by vehicles, are at the same rate as gun violence in this community. And so the ability to slow down traffic and to do some mediation around traffic controls has actually greatly enhanced small businesses' opportunities to continue to thrive. The bottom line is we need to land bank all the land the city currently owns. The most expensive thing we have when we're talking about building new things is land. And if we don't land bank the land that we have now, small businesses and people seeking rent will actually not be able to afford the rent. We need to make sure we have 60% and below median family income for those communities.
Thank you, Commissioner Hardesty. Appreciate
Trying to get it all in with the time we're about to go off.
I know. Well, here's the next question, and we'll start with you. How do you intend to prioritize small businesses in the upcoming spring budget? That's the question that's been proposed. And, I'll add to that, in the fall budget process, we didn't see any allocations going to small business. And so
not one penny, yes, which I was really offended by. And in fact, there are times that the way our city council operates does not really give us the opportunity to have a full public conversation. What I saw happen in the fall bump, I thought was criminal, that we put so much money into 2 and 3 year studies and things rather than actually putting money in the hands of people who needed it. But as one of 5 members, right, if I cannot get at least a majority of my other members to move, then I have to make a decision about whether I support the overall package or not. I am a strong advocate for small businesses getting direct aid from the federal dollars that we have coming in this year and next year, and I will be advocating that through our budget process. And with your help, hopefully we'll be able to invest in small businesses for real this time, rather than just talking about it.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Hardesty. And let's go next on that same question for those. Yes. Let's go to Vadim Mozyrsky please share how you would prioritize small businesses in budget talks.
Thank you. We do need to prioritize ARPA money to help small businesses, but we also need to make sure that in our budget, we take care of the businesses, because that's the growth engine in the future of Portland, and will provide living wages for people working here. We need to fund commercial rent relief and eviction protections. I don't think businesses are making as much as before the pandemic, but they're paying as much for their space as they are after the pandemic. We need to make sure that we provide grants to cover operational costs, such as investment in outdoor commerce or innovative software in order to help businesses succeed. We need to make sure that there's money in there for innovative solutions to our crime problems here in Portland. So I proposed in the past public safety support specialists, people who are unsworn officers, or not officers, but unsworn members of the police who can actually walk around and help the community and be boots on the ground. And that has been implemented now, but we also need to make sure that we have enough public Portland Street Response members out there. In Eugene, they answered 15,000 calls a year with a $2.2 million budget. Here we had a $5 million budget, and they answered much fewer calls than that. So make sure we have them well funded and make sure they're out there answering the needs of people. And then we need to work together. I mean, that's really what we need. Ensure that we have, whether in our budget or our policies, the ability between city, county, metro to work together on implementing policies, especially around homelessness. We're seeing that not happening right now. And we need to make sure that we communicate and work together better. Instead of divisive politics, we need to have inclusive politics. And that's my goal for running for office.
Thank you so much. And I just want to make sure that I share that we've invited all the candidates to respond in writing to these questions and other questions that will come up as well. So, you know, I know Commissioner Hardesty will need to be jumping off, and just want to let you know that there would be an opportunity to read a more thorough response to our questions later as well. So Rene Gonzalez, could you please share your budget?
Sure. Sure. And I just would observe as a baseline that public safety and challenges with the unsheltered are kind of table stake issues for the small business community. I'll get into my plan and later questions on those two subjects. Specific to the city budget, we've once had a fairly successful small business advisory council. And I think we need to find ways to kickstart that council again with dedicated partial staff person at the city that's focused entirely on small business needs, and particularly in policy development. Then improving and streamlining permitting process. I mean, this is what I hear every day on in talking with small business owners throughout the city, that the process takes way too long and fees are too high, and that the amount of predictability and uncertainty in the process is just overwhelming. Third, increase access to no and low interest loans, grants for facial upgrades. We have to confront insurance prices during the pandemic. This has been a real challenge for frontline retailers, and we need to find a gap here at the city level. If we can do some grants, some specific allocation of budget dollars, that would be great. I think a piece that's missed on our push for density is that in high dense areas where we're pushing multifamily, there's a real issue associated with available parking for retailers. And I think we need to look at ways to incentivize underground parking development for developers, particularly in high dense areas. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Let's next go to Commissioner Ryan on this question.
Yes, right when I got in office, I led the city council to focus in our budget process on the top 3 priorities facing the city: homelessness, community safety, and economic recovery. In a crisis, it's really important to get out of the silos of our bureaus and focus. And I'm really proud of that effort. What I've listened to since I've been in office and beforehand was the screams, the emails, they're just constant about needing more support, which is why I brought up the action that we're taking in the spring bump process to provide $500K in that for repair grants. Because the fact is, it's the increase in insurance and security concerns that is driving small businesses crazy throughout the city. And where I'm closest is in the Northeast Broadway corridor, which is like my village where I do my errands. And all of my shop owners have been telling me that's what they need. So I'm really happy that we'll get that in there. And then we need to look at a $10 million investment when we look at ARPA funds to spend on our small businesses for stabilization. Those would be larger grants, $25K for 350 businesses. And again, it will help them look at insurance cost and security concerns so they can make those investments. And also they can spend that money on back rent. I also led the effort to get the security gate legislation passed because a lot of businesses didn't want to open unless they could have better security systems. So we had to adjust the codes in BDS, and I brought that to the dais in time of need. So I'm always going to be a champion to focus on our small businesses, but I do think that also we have to remember that the other two priorities, community safety and homelessness, are foundational and front and center. Our economic recovery will not persist unless we take care of those two. They're all connected. Thanks.
Oh. Okay, thank you. I was muting myself inadvertently. AJ McCreary, we'd like to hear your response about budget priorities.
Yeah, I'd like to say, first off, as a nonprofit leader, I am prioritizing small business in our regular work. That is sort of how we have envisioned our work and are doing our work in real time, and have, like I mentioned earlier, invested over $4 million into our community and prioritize working with small businesses. I think City Council needs to listen deeply to small businesses of all different types in all parts of the city to understand best what they need in order to rebuild from the monumental impacts of COVID and to fill in the gaps left by relief dollars, which not reach everyone. I'll make use of the community or my community organizing skills, relationships, and networks to ensure that those entrepreneurs who are struggling the most right now can share what supports they need that can be supported in part by our city budgeting process. I'll continue to come to the table with my own ideas as well, such as stabilizing grants and loan programs for businesses who are unable for whatever reason to receive relief dollars from the Paycheck Protection Program or federal small business loans. Small businesses are the backbone of our community, and working with them is the only way that we're going to be moving out of our current crisis.
Thank you so much. Okay, here's one last question that's for all candidates, and I think it'd be great if you can succinctly respond to this question. I want to also remind everyone, we've received a lot of questions from people who registered for this call. We have sent these questions, and we'll also send these questions that are in the chat to the candidates so they have an opportunity to respond with a written response that we will share with you as well. So please don't worry if we don't get to it in this call. But here's another question that I'd like to share with you all. In 322 March 22nd feature on the future of downtown Portland from local news K2, the mayor and some of the commissioners were all quoted voicing their support for downtown, specifically citing the critical need for the return of office workers and visitors. However, it is my understanding that city workers, when required to return to their offices, will only be required to work 1 day a week in the office. How can city leadership square this with their supposed commitment to downtown? How can they expect the private sector to support downtown when they set policies that do not? And I will add that I know this has been a concern for folks even outside the downtown core. So you're probably wondering who gets to answer this question next. And I will say, I don't believe Commissioner Hardesty is on the call any longer. Let's go to Commissioner Ryan.
Thank you, Sarah. I pausing on the question. Okay, yeah, got it. So first of all, you got to walk your talk. So I've been back in the office the last few weeks. Tuesday through Thursday is how it's working out at the moment. And I really think that's important. And just a side note, there's 3 people on city council right now who have never experienced what it's like to work in city council pre-COVID. And it's something that isn't lost on me, because of the rare times where I've had a chance to sit, say, with Commissioner Rubio in City Hall. It's so magical. It's like you really are missing out on those organic nuances that take place when you have live contact. I do want to also pause and just acknowledge how many city employees have been working, haven't missed a beat. Our first responders, those people who work at water and sewer, and they have not missed a beat. They've been out there serving Portlanders throughout the pandemic, so let's not forget that. And also, we're investing a lot in security right now. The front doors were blowtorched, and so we have to spend money on fixing them. So that's an issue. And we're also going through training protocols right now with our staff, just so that our staff throughout the city feel safe when they return. So I think the mid-April date, one day is a gentle on-ramp. I do think we can accelerate it. And I do think it's about leadership and leading by example. One area I'm really attached to is getting the permitting center back open, because so many people really benefited from having a one-stop place to start off their permitting process. And although it's important to have hybrid models, some people are just always going to desire that person-to-person contact. When they get a complicated email, sometimes it just doesn't satisfy them. They need to have dialogue with those intact. So I'm looking forward to this, but please know it's an all-in effort. And I think all businesses downtown will be gradually coming back, and safety will be a concern, but getting more joy on the streets will be a part of that safety. Thanks.
AG McCreary.
Yes, thank you. Small businesses are unique in the way that they've always been nimble. In the last 20 years, we've seen small businesses evolve when the market demanded websites and products and services through the internet. We have seen small business evolve to meet the demands of social media and direct 24/7 customer access. We have provided assistance to small businesses after the Great Recession of 2008 and 09. And now, as we contend with this post-COVID economic shock, we now need to help small businesses evolve again to meet the new demands of the market. We all know that as the market evolves, some businesses will thrive and some businesses will flounder. My job on Portland City Council will be to empower our agencies to provide grants, technical assistance, and to come together for reimagining of what downtown is and why Portlanders and all out-of-towners should visit. We can implement plans to enable downtown to have more open streets and programs, more business owned by people of color, and make healthy business permit programs permanent. What we all have been through these past 2 years has totally and completely been unprecedented. And after all the changes that our restaurants, shops, galleries, bars, gyms, salons, dispensaries, et cetera, have had to both suddenly and gradually adopt in different waves of the pandemic, which is still ongoing. It is to be expected that we can't just flip a switch and return to how things were in 2019. Change takes time. And the truth is that the 40 hours, 5 days a week in-person work in the office wasn't ever meeting every worker's needs, such as people living with disabilities, parents struggling to find childcare. What I'm wanting to pursue is how can we use our abundance of creativity and resources to both meet the needs of downtown businesses as well as office workers. For example, might converting some downtown office spaces into housing, allowing for more work and work from home employees to regularly pop on to grab lunch in the downtown businesses. So it's going to be a partnership and not more of what we had.
Thank you, AJ. I just want to remind everyone that there is an opportunity to submit your written responses if the time constraint is there. And that goes also for those folks dropping new questions in the chat. So let's move next to, I believe Commissioner Hardesty has had to leave. So let's now go to Rene Gonzalez around the same question about coming back to work.
Well, the city needs to lead by example, and that means returning to work downtown. The reality for all businesses is that work has changed in the last 2 years, and we're all in competitive marketplaces to attract and retain talent. So the reality in 2022 is that while the city needs to walk the walk, it's got to fight like hell to attract good workers, to attract talented professionals. And sometimes that's going to require a level of flexibility in work environments. That's just the reality every employer faces. So what can we do? Well, one, we can look at incentives for workers to return downtown. Can the city reimburse for lunches? Can we look more aggressively at what our public transit subsidies are for workers for subsidizing downtown parking? Everything that we can do to sort of lessen the pain, the economic pain to leaving your house and coming downtown. But then more fundamentally, we have to restore downtown to an attractive place to be. And it's too dangerous to ride TriMet sometimes right now. It's filthy, as well as a lot of our public transit, where sidewalks are overwhelmed with just really unpleasant realities right now. And there's too much crime downtown. So nobody wants to go downtown when it's in the condition it is right now. We need to stabilize those other areas. I think that will make it more attractive for workers in both the public and private sector. But at the end of the day, the city's got to walk the walk on this subject. At the same time, we've got to recognize some flexibility in recruiting, retaining top professionals for the city. Thanks.
Thank you. And Vadim Mozyrsky.
Thank you very much. Yes, our city needs to join the private sector and be downtown and be open. I think we need to certainly take into account workers' needs, and we need to work with the unions in order to make sure that employees are represented and that the unions' voices are heard when we're negotiating people coming back to work. I've worked with the unions in the past and will continue to do so. But it's very important to have that foot traffic downtown from employees. It'll help with the safety needs of Portland. The more people we have eyes on the ground, the better it'll be out there. It'll help with the downstream effect. Those individuals will be spending money on dry cleaning, will be spending money on restaurants. And I think most people want to have that balance of being able to work from home, but also being able to come in and actually participate in the liveliness of downtown and central Portland regions. I certainly talked to businesses like Andy Fortgang opened up a new wine business in North Park Blocks. I was in South Park Blocks recently, and there was a small store. And they're waiting for people to walk around and stop in and shop, and we need to make sure we encourage that. So there needs to be a balance definitely between the desires of employees to work from home, but also desires of the city to make sure that we have accountability, that the siloing effect of people not communicating is broken down, and we can do that better by having people be in person from certain days of the week. Once again, having more people in central areas working, leading by example, whether that's the city or federal employees, will help everybody in the long term. So I think a lot of people would be anxious to have that happen.
Thank you so much. Now let's see if we can go rapid fire round with the commissioners on responding to this question, because this is more of a city question, but we'd like to hear from the county commissioners about what your approach is about returning back to work. So let's go to Sharon Meieron. Oh, you're muted, Sharon. Commissioner.
Of course I am. There. Thank you. We need to go back to work. The restrictions have been lifted. We need to be figuring out how to get people back to work and what we need to be doing that is effective and gets our work done and shows people. We need to be a model.
Thank you for that. I love the quick response. And is that what you're doing in your office? I'm just curious.
We are, that is a great question to talk about walking the walk. We're working back to it. And so we are not every day of the week, but more and more days. And it is the goal.
Okay. And Commissioner Vega Peterson.
Yeah, so first of all, I just want to point out there's been a large segment of the county employee population that has never stopped going to work, whether it's people who are working in our jails, people who are working at our health department, people who are in our emergency response and public health who have been responding to COVID. So those people have always been going back to work. We've had folks at our McCoy Center in Old Town for the whole time. So I just want to say that the county has been actively working a lot of times. At the board level, we are back to work, and we have been back to work since the fall, at least 2 days a week where we're coming in person for our board meetings. Even though we have the option to do it virtually. I try to be there every single time in person because I think it's a good statement to our employees and to my team that we are in the office, and we are, as Commissioner Meieron says, we are going to be bringing that back up in terms of the number of days per week that we're there. But it's great. And it definitely, like when I'm there, I am like going to food carts and going to restaurants and taking advantage. So you can see the multiplier effect it has when people are actually working downtown to the other, small businesses and restaurants that are all around us.
Thank you so much. And Commissioner Stegmann, we love to hear from you.
Thank you, Sarah. I mean, I think the bottom line is that we are social creatures. Like, we want to be with other people. And I don't know if you all are excited, but sometimes I'm excited to get dressed, and go downtown and be out in the public eye and go to restaurants. But with the creation of an economic development department, we can better partner with small businesses. I think about some of the events like we've done like a bike ride into downtown Portland. Like the county, we could host specific events that would drive our employees to participate in really fun activities that would send folks into downtown Portland to shop and to play. I think that there could also be a partnership of providing some type of incentive or perhaps discount for our county employees. So I think there's some real creative opportunities to listen and work with the small business development or the small businesses in downtown and say, hey, what would drive business into your specific business? And so that's what I want to do. One of the things that we did out here in East County is we had a Try Local First program that I helped develop, where we wanted to support our small businesses, and we can do the same thing in downtown Portland with all of the 6,000 employees that work at the county.
Thank you so much. And okay, now we're going to go to some other questions. And I just want to share, like, Bricks Need Mortar and a lot of other organizations have been really presenting all kinds of great solutions. And we hope that everyone here continues to listen, regardless of who wins this next election or not. And I think, since everyone's had a chance to answer this question, I just want to point out, like, there's a real urgency here. So working back to coming back to work is a tough thing, I think, for a lot of these business owners to hear. I think the answer we'd like to hear is, yes, starting next Monday, 5 days a week, here we go. I mean, I think I just want to share that with everyone. Okay, so now we're going to ask, we have very little bit of time, but don't worry, everyone, we're going to get answers for you, even if it's not on this call. Crime and houselessness obviously have come up as really big questions. Just for the city council candidates, what are you doing to address the anti-law and order rhetoric? People are losing their lives and livelihoods in the chaos of Portland as crime increases. Just for the sake of time, I'm wondering if we could have just really quick responses from everyone. And I'm going to start on this one with AJ McCreary.
I'd say community-led safety initiatives prioritize community needs and improves the quality of life for everyone. Like many cities across the nation, Portland has seen an alarming spike in gun violence during the pandemic, and I'm committed to working collaboratively with community and government stakeholders to provide the action necessary to make Portlanders safe. Well-resourced communities are safe communities. It is critical that we act on this urgent need to stop the untimely and senseless deaths of our community members. So we need to dismantle the crisis response team and behavioral unit and reallocate that funding to the Portland Street Response. We need to be looking at the ways that we're investing and working with community-based organizations. We need to use ongoing budget surpluses to focus on programming that has proven track records to change safety outcomes. We need to look at the data and actually follow the data. Investing in the way that we're going with addressing crime is not working. We need to center community-led solutions in holistic public safety, including access to behavioral health, mental health, substance abuse, housing, food, and social services. You can read the rest of my response, but I definitely believe in well-resourced communities are safe communities. And I know that from lived experience and from the work that I do in real time.
Thank you so much. And Commissioner Ryan.
Thanks. Yeah, we can always keep the racial justice movement front and center, and we can have pragmatic solutions to the very gripping crime that people are currently experiencing on our streets at the highest level ever. So that's why I've led the effort to make pragmatic decisions, whether it was having the courage in the 6 weeks into office to saying there's no reason to keep defunding the police at this time. We need to make sure that we keep repurposing our frontline safety response in a coordinated fashion, which is why I supported the expansion of Portland Street's response once we had the findings and we actually had the legs to do that. And I've also been really clear that we need community investments, again, to build relationships between impacted communities and law enforcement. I'm really excited that we were part of a very successful police negotiation with the union, where we actually have a clear and concise discipline guide finally in the contract. And I really am excited for that progress. We need to keep building the morale up so we can hire the police officers that we need on our frontline system. And I want to be a part of that movement as well. And I'm looking forward to those vacancies being filled. Portlanders are experiencing unprecedented crime also in their neighborhoods. There's not a week that doesn't go by in my own block where there isn't a catalytic converter or a gas tank being punctured. And so just like the city council brought in an ordinance to look at street racing, we need to have some responsive ordinance at this time that's dealing with the current crime on our streets. Portlanders are done accepting the intolerable, and they want elected officials to act with bold leadership. I'm that person. I look forward to being reelected. Thanks.
Thank you. Rene Gonzalez.
Well, I think fundamentally we need to end what's one blogger's called the defund police culture that transcends budgets. It's the general rhetoric coming from City Hall. It's policy that's dictated by the Twitter sphere and repeated by certain parts of the press and in City Hall. We absolutely have to reject it. We cannot have a functioning city without a functioning police department. That means we need to balance the calls for accountability with a much needed need in creating an environment that attracts and retains high quality police officers. You know, and it matters what you say, it matters in you don't say. So if there's an event that may involve police violence, we need to keep our powder dry. We need to let those incidences be investigated and not prosecute in the press before things have been fully resolved and investigated. So that's a big shift, in my opinion, in terms of the rhetoric that's coming out of City Hall on this subject. Again, it's crucial if we're going to attract and retain good, high quality police officers. But one last piece. Crime is affecting every Portlander, rich, middle class, or wealthy. It's affecting every one of us in our neighborhoods. It's affecting our nonprofits, our businesses, our cultural institutions. It affects our parents, our children, our spouses. So we need to shift, and it needs to happen right now. And it starts with the language coming out of our elected officials. Thanks.
Okay. Vadim Mozyrsky.
Thank you. I was just at a store recently, a small store owned by a Persian family. The window on their door was broken. I asked about that. They said that their windows had been broken 6 times in the last few months, that their insurance rate has gone up twice, and that they were fixing the door on their own because they didn't want to tell their insurance about it and have their rate go up again. We need to change that. We need to have community policing. Certainly, we need to reform the police and make sure that the training is great, that we have community oversight, and that new oversight agency is taking too long to start up. But nonetheless, we're understaffed, over 100 officers here, 30% fewer officers per capita than Seattle, 70% less per capita than Denver. We need to change that. And that's where experience matters. I've been working on these issues, both on the Citizen Review Committee that hears complaints against the Police Bureau, as well as the Portland Committee on Community Engaged Policing and the Police Review Board. These are all organizations where I understand the needs of the police. I understand the challenges that are facing the police, and I understand the needs of the community and making sure that the police are held accountable. Most community members actually want more police to be out there walking and knowing their neighborhoods. They want people that know their needs, and they want people that serve and protect. And that's what I bring to the table, that knowledge, that experience, and the ability to get things done and have pragmatic solutions to our crises.
Thank you. In these last couple of minutes, I just want to ask to the county chair candidates, around houselessness. There's a unique relationship between the city and the county in tackling this. Let's go. Got just a minute per person. Commissioner Lori Stegmann, how can you help us with this?
So your question is, how can the city and the county work better together?
How can the county better support the city of Portland in addressing houselessness?
Absolutely. In the last fall bump, we just put some money in to streamline the county services with the Portland city departments. Obviously, we've talked about the form of government that the city of Portland has. So I think that we have to work much closer together. I think that we can use each other's models around community policing. We have something called the HOPE team, Homeless Outreach Program Engagement, 2 Multnomah County Sheriff's officers that do outreach for our house population in East County. I think we can share community policing models like that, as well as like law enforcement assisted diversion that direct people out of homelessness and criminality and into behavioral health. And partnering with Portland Police is going to be critical, as well as we bring behavioral health. So there's a natural marriage for us to work together.
Thank you, Commissioner Stegmann. And Commissioner Vega Peterson.
Thank you. So I think it's important that people know that it's actually Multnomah County that is receiving all of the supportive housing services measure that was recently passed by voters in May of 2020. We receive it, the Clackamas County does, and Washington County does. I think what's important, though, is that historically, both Multnomah County and the city of Portland have put general fund dollars into investments in fighting housing and houselessness. And we need to continue to do that. I think one of the things that's most important as we're looking at how we're going to address this issue together is that the city and the county need to do a better job of working collaboratively together, and there needs to be less like finger pointing and saying this isn't our job, this is their job, and we really need to work collaboratively. And I do really appreciate some of the commissioners that are on this call that I've had that experience with so far. But you know, we have to do this as we're putting out alternative shelters. I've opened 2 shelters in my district just in the past 5 years. As we're opening up new shelter beds, as we're buying motels to get people into permanent housing quickly. You know, we need to be working together so that the things that the city does, like permitting, and the things that the county does, like behavioral health services, are working in conjunction. And that will be my primary focus as county chair. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like Commissioner Meieron to have the last word here. And then remember, we will be following up with you all. So let's hear from you, Commissioner Meieron.
Thank you. And I really appreciate that. So first of all, a couple of things. You know, people think the joint office is truly a joint office of homeless services. It isn't. You may be seeing more about this in the days to come as we re-up our negotiation with the city. And we need to make the joint office truly a partnership and a joint office in the real sense. Second, our money isn't being used effectively and we're not accounting for it effectively. And so whatever we're putting it into, we're not sure it's being used in fact, I would say it is not being used in the best way possible. We need to make sure these structures and systems function effectively. So when we say we're making these investments, that they actually are having the impact we intend. So one of the questions asked if there's a win-win answer basically to help the homeless people and help our city at the same time. And the answer is yes. And our status quo is not that answer. I've consistently challenged it and I've proposed a viable alternative comprehensive plan. People don't want to be living on the streets in squalor, and businesses and house neighbors don't want this either. And we distract by the bigger picture by focusing on individuals and one-offs and individual shelters, tens and hundreds of people at a time. But again, it goes back to our systems. Thousands of people are living outside, and we need to be thinking holistically, not the drops in the bucket. My plan that I've proposed, you can see on my website, adds 2 crucial items which will address scale and systems. A system of tiny, eeny, weeny footprint, I know I hear it, footprint structures or hamlets. So 10 structures, people can live with basic amenities, and people are distributed equitably.
Appreciate it so
I'm
much.
sorry to
Okay.
cut you off, but
Underneath-
make sure everyone gets your full responses. And I just want to thank all the candidates for taking the time to be here with us today, and all of you small business owners who are so having such a limited bandwidth to come here and to learn more about all these candidates. And thank you, everyone. Have a beautiful day, and let's make our city. Let's keep doing what we do to make our city the best it can be. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.